Hi, this is Crystal and I'm doing my family evaluation. I've decided to look at a program called Lydia's House. Lydia's House is a program that provides transitional housing for women and children who have experienced domestic violence. I've provided a PowerPoint online, so you can go online and I'm going to be quickly going through some of these things. I've pulled them right off the website of Lydia's House. All that's provided in the PowerPoint, so you can look that up. First of all, I want to talk about the mission statement of Lydia's House. It says, Lydia's House works in faith to end domestic violence by being a place of healing and a voice of hope for abused women and their children. So Lydia's House provides transitional housing for women and children, like I said, for 30 to 90 days until women can get back up on their feet and try to find some housing away from domestic violence. Statistics say that women leave an abusive relationship on the average of 7 times before they actually leave. And they need the resources, and they don't have the resources. Lydia's House empowers women and children to rebuild safe, independent lives, and 85% of them do go away with permanent housing and self-sustaining employment. So let me just talk a little bit about some of the programs and services that they provide. They provide personal advocacy, support groups, spiritual support, economic literacy, community and family activities, and access to community resources. So those are some of the things that they provide. They also safe, confidentially located furnished apartments for people that decide to go there. A little bit about the history as I'm overviewing this program. It started in 1994 by Mary Albert, Martha Brunel, and Dawn Stringfield and Doris Wagner. They felt a call to start this ministry for women who were experiencing domestic violence. In 1996, Lydia's House opened with their first house that was donated, and it was renovated by volunteers, and they had 1 full-time staff member. In 1998, they received a $250,000 capital, or a capital campaign was launched to purchase a multi-family apartment complex. Then in 2005, Lydia's House opened a 25-unit apartment complex which could serve 35 families at one time. It also includes their space for administration. There's a protected outdoor playground, a computer learning center, a space for GED and life skills, parenting and economic self-sufficiency classes, arts and crafts, and recreational facilities. I want to talk a little bit about the theological premise for the program. I believe that scriptures like Isaiah 61, which talk about building up or binding up the brokenhearted and comforting those who mourn, I believe Lydia's House is doing this. Matthew 25:40, which talks about feeding the hungry, clothing the poor, visiting the sick, and visiting those that are in prison. Jesus said, I tell you the truth, whatever you do unto the least of these, you've done unto me. And at the end of Matthew 25, he's very strict. If you don't do that, you're going to have eternal punishment. Lydia's House is providing this. This is a program that is providing hope for people who need hope in domestic violence. Romans 13:10, which talks about love doing no harm to its neighbor. Mark 12:33, which talks about loving neighbor as self. I believe this is the theological premise for this program. They don't specifically state that on their website because they are a secular program, but I believe that this is the premise for the program. So I've already done a little bit of an overview. I've given you the theological premise. I talked about the problem that is being addressed. They're providing care for women and children in domestic violence. In regards to a published program evaluation, I couldn't find one of those, but what I did find was an annual report, 2008-2009. Let me just highlight a few things. They provided 27,546 nights of safety to 133 individuals. They held 3,493 individual advocacy sessions. They provided 84 support groups. And they provided 100 community meals and social activities for the residents. So I do believe that this annual report is showing some accountability and some accomplishments that they have had for Lydia's House. Different ways that I think that we can evaluate the program. Garland in chapter 15 talks about several different things, but on page 407 it says families may not be what they seem to be at church. This is something that we need to consider, and that as Oneness Apostolics, as Oneness Pentecostals, we need to be aware that there could be domestic violence in our church, and it is our obligation to help these women and these children, and maybe even men that might be in this situation. Lydia's house is just for women and children, but men could be experiencing domestic violence too. So we need to be aware of that. We may need to be aware that some of their needs might not be ascribed, or that they're not being met, they're not felt. Garland talks a little bit about that on page 409. Sometimes people, it's hard for them to reach out when they're in domestic violence. A lot of times a victim feels like it's their fault. They feel like they're the ones that caused it, and we need to let them know that that's not true. Garland on page 413 talks about planning assessments, talks about a biblical foundation. Definitely believe Lydia's house has a biblical foundation. Lydia's house has goals. Garland talks about boundaries. I think this is one thing that we need to consider in a program like this. What are the boundaries that need to be established? For instance, in a local church, I think it's important to have people who are counselors, that are licensed counselors and psychologists. And I believe that it's important for us to refer people to these professionals if they need that help. And so those are some of the boundaries that we may need to consider with a program like this. Garland also talks about methods and needs for financial resources and persons. Of course, this is something in the greater St. Louis area, Lydia's house, but there might be something in your city like this, and if there's not, and there's a problem in your church, we may need to start something like that. But something to think about is financial resources. Garland on page 463 talks about a couple questions, and this will kind of conclude my presentation, but are we meeting our objectives? Is Lydia's house meeting their objectives? I think by their annual report, by their statistics and different objectives and accomplishments that they've listed on their website, I believe they are. Are there better ways that we could meet our objective, or should we modify what we're doing? I think that over the years they expanded, just from 2004 to 2010. In 6 years, they've gone from one house to a complex that holds, that can serve 35 families. The third question that Garland talks about, what impact has the ministry had on those who we're serving, and what might help make it more significant? I wrote a quote down from Lori Arms, and she said this: "My eyes still well up when I get to give a new resident who is uncertain, scared, and often traumatized a tour of their temporary home. I watch them relax ever so slightly. I'm still thrilled when I see the eyes of a child light up as I take them to our spacious, bright space youth rooms and tutoring lab. My heart still fills with pride in the resiliency demonstrated by our guests who cooperate with one another to cook a group Easter dinner and prepare eggs for dining with their children in our wonderful guest kitchens." I've personally experienced and worked with people that have been involved in domestic violence, and I can say that it's a scary place to be. It's scary when you can't even go back to your own home because you fear for your life. That's scary. And a woman who maybe has 3 children possibly, where is she going to go? What's going to happen? That's a scary situation. And so Lydia's home is providing care for people. And I believe that we need to, as a church, that this is the mission of the church. This is something that we need to do. Some areas I think of improvement that Lydia's house could work on. They might want to, maybe do some more program statistics, community indicators, surveys, questionnaires, or interviews. I know they're doing some of that, but more of that might help them evaluate if they are being effective in their ministry. And I believe that they are. They helped, from 2008 to 2009, they helped 133 people, 50 some of them was women, 83 of those children. I think that is very important, and I think that we need to commend them for that. So this was my family evaluation, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.